So most of the time, in any given moment, our default mode is protecting ourselves. And however difficult that can be, we actually would probably prefer that it be that way, that we are able to protect ourselves, especially when the threat is substantive in the sense that there's a physical threat or there's a threat of emotional abuse. And we want to be highly sensitized to them and take appropriate action. Most of the time, though, the threats to us these days are to our sense of identity or ego. And I find that even in a kindness practice, that sometimes I feel a little threat to my ego, my identity. And there's a tendency in me to judge, to wonder whether or not when I'm offering loving kindness to myself, I'm worthy of this loving kindness. Or when I'm offering it to somebody else, is this person really worthy of loving kindness? Have they earned it? Have they behaved appropriately? Have I behaved appropriately to deserve loving kindness? When we get into this place of judging, we can think of it as an act of separating. When we hear or see something we don't like or we think is a threat, we form a negative opinion about it. That's a way of separating ourselves from this perceived threat. And it can be pretty effective. One of the reasons that we tend to separate ourselves with judgment is that certain circumstances can make us feel vulnerable. If I'm offering kindness to myself when I am feeling as if I'm not worthy of it, then I'm making myself feel vulnerable, too open. Or if I offer loving kindness to somebody else that I don't think is worthy of it, I'm wondering if I'm overstepping, if I'm not encouraging inappropriate behavior and somehow making myself vulnerable. And of course, vulnerability is a big challenge. Now, I want to hurry to add that judgment is different from discernment. Our judgments, our opinions, are very much shaped by our own personal four conditions of being human that are beyond our control. The way our brains and nervous systems have evolved, our genetic composition, our conditioning when we were young, and social and cultural norms. All of those things shape our judgments and opinions. And it's not that we shouldn't have judgments and opinions. It's not that they're necessarily bad to have. But when we keep defaulting to them without an awareness from which they have arisen, then we often are using judgment unskillfully, indiscriminately, and separating ourselves from things that we don't really need to separate from. When we look at our own judgments within the context of how the four conditions apply to us, then we can get a little bit different view, a little different appreciation and understanding of what our judgment is about. So for instance, in my case of judging myself or somebody else as being unworthy of kindness, one of the things that can come up for me is the issue of competence. My four conditions have really shaped me to place a premium on being competent. And God forbid I should be incompetent. I don't want anybody ever to see me as incompetent. And that's why I maintain this very careful relationship with Rob. He's never seen me be incompetent. Of course, that's ridiculous. But incompetence is a big deal for me, a fear of incompetence. So that's an example of how the four conditions shape my inclination to judge whether or not somebody is worthy, me included, of my kindness. And I suspect that each of you have your own ways that the four conditions are shaping your inclination to judge, your inclination to have judgment get in to the mix of offering kindness and perhaps interfere with it. Our ability to discern arises when we see clearly. And seeing clearly in life is mostly about understanding how the four conditions affect each of us, how they affect the people we care about and know. It's also seeing clearly the 3 Ps, that life is not permanent, perfect, or to be taken personally. And it's also about seeing clearly the 5 qualities, characteristics of our inherent enoughness. Not only our capacity to protect ourselves, but our capacities to connect, to self-regulate, to learn, and to be aware. So when we're seeing clearly the 4 Cs, 3 Ps, and 5 Es, then we realize that this inclination to be judgmental just leads to separateness, which is an illusion. It's belonging, it's connecting that's real. And it's kindness practice that can tilt us away from separateness toward belonging. Kay was reminding me this morning that there's research that shows that people who engage in kindness practice for about 20 minutes a day for 7 weeks change the parts of their brain where empathy and connecting are prominent. So we can shift ourselves away from judgment toward kindness. Make this basic shift from being in a protecting mode way too often, from perceiving 11 out of every 4 threats, and getting ourselves in a place of connecting. So let's do a practice around this. As you're settling in and finding your own space, and allowing your attention to come to your breathing, perhaps softening a little bit, especially on the out-breath. And just observing your breathing for a few moments. And in a moment, I will share with you the 4 loving kindness phrases that we were introduced to on Monday. And as you repeat each phrase, noticing whether there's a sense of connecting or whether there's some sense of judging or resistance. And in each case, whether it's connecting or judging or resistance, noticing how that feels in your body. So we will go slowly, giving you time to pay attention to what happens with each phrase. And we'll begin by offering these phrases to ourselves. May I be safe and free from harm. May I be fully alive in each moment. May I be well in body and spirit. May I live with ease. And now bringing to mind a person or being in your life, perhaps a pet, that you care for but have an uncomplicated relationship with. And this time we'll offer these 4 phrases to this being, and again paying attention to what kinds of thoughts and feelings arise with each phrase. So holding the image of this being right in front of you, saying, may you be safe and free from harm. May you be fully alive in every moment. May you be well in body and spirit. May you live with ease. And remembering that this practice is a process, that if this is fairly new to you, you're planting seeds. Or if you've been engaging in kindness practices for a while, This is a way of continuing to cultivate those seeds, giving them the chance to bloom. Just tuning in at the moment to what emotions and sensations are present right now, without judgment, simply being aware.